All right. Welcome, everybody. This is super exciting, super fun. Welcome to the first official talk of this Becoming Superconductors of Love Summit. And we're starting out right out the gate on a really, really happy note with Sheridan Semple and, of course, Kaylin Castell. And they're going to be talking about, among other things, the Venus dance going on in the Pisces, Aries, goddess, Venus world, right? Um, and Kaylin and I both have our Venus is in Aries, and we both have our Pisces energy. So, I feel like a, an Aries Pisces goddess myself. So I'm really excited to hear what you're gonna say. And I just love both of you so much. And yeah, this is gonna be awesome. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
We love you so much too, Martha. And I have to say, I have been living the Pisces Aries, not the Aries Pisces, for most of my life. But I'm have been making the shift and really taking the deeper dive into this has just been blowing my mind. So I'm going to go ahead and share because, images are always good. And and what we're seeing is that it's not just an Aries cycle and it's not just a Pisces cycle that's happening with Venus. It's Aries Pisces, and there are so much confirmation coming from everywhere. It is mind-blowing, heart um opening. It's just it's so good, and the divine feminine really coming into a whole new way of being that we've never even considered before. So we thought one of the things I love to do is start with an invocation. And this is the combining of the Aries Pisces MetaGoddess. And you can see here there's a fierce but also loving, combination of Aries Pisces, the water and the fire and all of that. So this is the invocation. Oh, wondrous and wise universal mother protector, thank you for guiding me to wisely use my immense power and courageous strength through inspired action that expands my compassion for all life, deepening my transcendent inner knowing and empathic sensitivity to what is needed now. Thank you for inspiring me to boldly continue taking decisive action that furthers the fulfillment of the divine creation, anchored in pure love, justice, and protection of the innocent. Thank you for reminding me to freely express and offer my gifts from overflowing love, kindness, and generosity of spirit. Thank you for encouraging me to graciously feel the full range of my feelings, including full on surrender into my sorrow and grief. So I know and experience the benefit of feeling these feelings as a true blessing, inspiring greater joy and blissful divine union. With all aspects of this creation, I am here to express by freely and lovingly fulfilling my mission and purpose as a heartfelt, joyous expression of sacred service to all life. It is done, it is so, and so it is. With heartfelt gratitude, blessed be.
Blessed be. So just before we dive into like all the Aries Pisces stuff, let's talk about why we would even tune into the Venus cycle. So working ceremonially with the Venus cycle is for those who yearn for deeper connection, purpose, and alignment with the sacred feminine inside themselves and out in the world as well. It's about connecting into what our ancestors knew, how to align with the earth and the sky and our divine essence, right? Our soul essence, our connection to the cosmos. And as Richard Tarnas highlights in his very famous book, Cosmos and Psyche, he says that modern Western humans struggle with these three problems, right? A spiritual disconnection from something greater than ourselves, alienation from each other, nature, and the cosmos, and a lost understanding of life's cycles, right? Including the creation and destruction, the death and rebirth, the shadow and the light. And that these three problems are what are at the root of basically kind of everything that we're experiencing and seeing out in the world right now. So consciously connecting to the Venus cycle takes steps to solve these problems us modern humans are facing. And there's lots of different ways to go about that, but connecting with the Venus cycle is an amazing way to tackle that. So it reunites us with the larger spiritual whole. In fact, the very first written story we have in the whole world is about the Venus cycle, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. It reconnects us to ourselves, to nature, connecting with Venus, the sky. We come to learn about ourselves through astrology and the archetypal energy that we're growing through. And it teaches us to embrace life's cycles, repeating over and over, like the spiral, right? Dipping into the shadow to find our light. And I always like to remember that we were connected for much longer, right? Millennia longer than we've been disconnected in this modern time over the last 500 or so years. So it's really something very rooted within us. So attuning ourselves to the Venus cycle invites us to connect deeply with the rhythms of the divine feminine. This is about saying no to the patriarchal mindset that we are all at the effect of, right? No matter how we identify, we unconsciously favor the masculine. We tend to erroneously believe it's superior, like the way to go, it's the path to success and happiness, wholeness even, right? But it's not whole, it's missing half. And this is where the Venus cycle comes in, right? Venus represents an exploration of the divine feminine through all the different archetypes and phases of the Venus cycle. The Venus cycle lasts about 19 months or 1.6 years, the golden ratio. It begins when Venus appears in the eastern dawn sky, visible as morning star ahead of the sunrise. And the MetaGoddess, that's the term that we use for the overarching goddess of each entire Venus cycle, is the astrological sign Venus rises in as morning star. And this next one is Aries Pisces, which we'll explain in a moment, coming right now. So the Venus cycle is transformational alchemy. So that oldest story we have is called The Descent of Inanna, and it's written on those cuneiform tablets that you see here. It's the ancient Sumerian myth of Inanna's descent and explains the cosmology of the Venus cycle. So it's literally the first written story we have in the world is about Venus and the Venus cycle and the divine feminine, right? I always like to let that land for a second. So the story begins when Venus first appears in the eastern morning sky, like I said, before the sunrise. And for ancient Sumerians and then the later Babylonians, the Venus cycle starts when Venus becomes visible, when we can see Venus with our eyes, right? Not at the exact conjunction with the sun. It's the idea of when we can see that first crescent moon is the true new moon as opposed to the exact dark of the moon conjunction between the moon and the sun. In the story, Inanna passes through 7 gates, descending into and then ascending back out of the underworld, which is when she's meeting with the sun. Venus meets with this crescent moon each month, and this represents the chakra gates. The Inanna story informs our ceremonial journey with Venus at Venus Alchemy through her entire 19-month cycle, right? We follow this story as the framework. And this is part of why we're talking about this being an Aries Pisces MetaGoddess cycle.
And just something to know about the story of Inanna's descent and ascent as she goes through each of these gates, as the Venus meets with the moon, something we can visually see and connect to. She's having to, as she's going into the underworld, she has to let go of vestments that represent chakras. So this is how we know that this is what is going on. And then as she's coming back out of the underworld, she gets to retrieve them, now having released any distortions or things that were connected to those chakras. And so she can have a healthy relationship with them. So this story is so brilliantly describing the Venus cycle in the sky. And they worked with it ceremonially way back when. So there are 5 Venus synodic cycles every 8 years. So that 19-month cycle every 8 years comes back to a starting place. And this is just showing how it also creates a pentagram in the sky as it goes. If it starts with, say we start with the Capricorn cycle, then we go to the Leo cycle, the one that is completing as we're getting ready to go into the Aries Pisces cycle. And then it's going to be, they shift over time. So it comes back within a couple of days every 8 years. And over 1,250 years, about 155 years between each point, they shift. So it's that whole pentagram is making a circle through the sky. And so last in March of 2017, the last time Venus rose, it was definitely in the sign of Aries when she was visible. This time we have another story, and we'll talk about that more as we go.
And this is just a photograph I took at one of those Moon Venus conjunctions at one of the chakra gates out of my backyard. And I just wanted to show it here because this is that place where we're connecting to Venus and the moon. And when you see this in the sky, I mean, it stops you in your tracks. It's awe-inspiring, right? It instantly connects into that ancestral DNA, your spiritually connected place. And you know you're tuning into something much greater than yourself. And so it's a visual, physical, as well as spiritual, emotional, cosmic journey all the way through. So while most astrologers are going to be referring to this cycle as an Aries Venus cycle, because they're talking about the conjunction between the sun and Venus in Aries, which happens on March 22nd. So that same idea of like the new moon at the dark of the moon, right? That's going to happen in Aries. So most astrologers will be saying this is an Aries Venus cycle. But as we just explained, at Venus Alchemy, we emphasize the moment Venus becomes visible in the sky, just as literally all of our ancestors did, whether you can track your lineage back to the Sumerians and the Babylonians or not, right? All of our ancestors tracked and paid attention to the Venus cycle. So depending upon your location on the Earth, Venus may rise visibly in Aries for some of you and in Pisces for others. And we'll explain this more as we go. So this is a very unique and special Venus cycle embodying the intersection between Aries and Pisces, right? So what does this archetypal energetic blending offer for us, right? So this is something we're questioning, and we'll be posing these questions as we go through this presentation today. But here are some. Is it the place where our individuality begins serving the collective? Is it about finding compassion for ourselves on our individual paths, where like so many of us tend to be so, that self-critic can be so loud? Is there a place of a healing within that? How about how our power lies in uncovering our authentic selves with unconditional love, right? Coming into that place of really tuning into our true selves with unconditional love, and that lets our power bloom forth. Or healing ourselves so we can create a better world in communion with spirit, right? That it's like the new earth starts with like inside each of us. So where does Pisces end and Aries begin? Right? Or where does Pisces end? I mean, where does Aries end and Pisces begin as this cycle is shifting? So one morphing into the other and back again, like the idea of the Chinese yin and yang symbol, right? What does an exploration into the cusp between Aries and Pisces offer us? What is the alchemy created when Aries transmutes into Pisces, right? A lot of times we may be thinking, what is the alchemy of when Pisces shifting into Aries? But what does it mean when Aries is shifting into Pisces, right? All of these things are present. This energy is very alive for us in these coming 2 years. So the warrioress and the healer, compassionate protector, empathic individualist, right? Learning to merge and unite with healthy boundaries, defender of the divine feminine. Again, these are just some ideas. And interestingly, the archetypal energies of Aries and Pisces are significantly activated throughout this year and into next year. So the lunar nodes just shifted. So the north node is in Pisces. Saturn and Neptune are going to go into Aries and back to Pisces and back to Aries, right? Like just like this Venus cycle is happening and Venus's retrograde is happening through these signs. And then also the next Mercury retrograde will be in Aries and then will station direct in Pisces. So like there's a lot of Aries Pisces energy really activated. And as we go through this, we'll be sharing some ideas, but the most important idea is, what does it mean for you? How do you feel it? How do you experience it? What is it offering to you and sharing with you and teaching you and helping you grow and evolve through your own path? Because astrology is for you.
I love that. I love that also that I think that one of the reasons that it helps us to know that this is an Aries Pisces MetaGoddess cycle is that there's so much Aries Pisces Pisces Aries going on in addition to the fact that this is happening. Like, you know, the whole Neptune Saturn conjunction in Aries only happening once in 3,000 years at the 0 Aries point. I mean, so amazing. So if we think about Aries as being fire and Pisces as being water, how do they co-create together? And we can see this in nature, like rivers of lava and flowing into the ocean. It's like creating the steam, the hot springs, the hot, you know, the heat of the earth and heating up the water, creating the hot springs. That can be very healing, by the way, and fun to hang out in. And then hot water, the fire creating the hot water. So if we put these two things together, we have fierce sympathy and compassion. We have fierce commitment to health and healing. And we have a fierce stand for compassionate justice. So those are just a few of the things that we can start to feel into.
And I just want to say, Martha, I saw you unmuted a couple of times. What would you like to share that we're just like talking over you?
It's okay. Yeah, no, I just want to throw in that today, you know, in the summit, we're talking about this Venus cycle with these energies, but in the coming days, there are going to be many talks that dive into other components. Like Gary Caton will be on his day, will be going into the Mercury retrograde and how it also is bridging these energies, right? And so yeah, so just FYI for everybody listening that
Yeah, some of these things we're just introducing. Other people are going to go into greater depth, and so stay tuned.
yeah, exactly.
So if we think about Aries as the first seasonal sign of the zodiac. So I'm not talking about constellations, I'm talking about the seasonal signs, marking the spring equinox point. When the sun reaches 0 Aries, we have the spring equinox, the balance of day and night. And that's the beginning of the seasonal signs, the alpha. And then Pisces being the omega, because when it reaches 29 Pisces, we're at the very end of the seasonal signs and going to make the round again into 0 Aries. So it's the alpha and omega, the beginning and the end and the beginning. It's all, as Sheridan was sharing with the yin and yang, and how it's all kind of weaving together with each other. But if we think about Aries as I begin, I am, I'm decisive, I'm courageous, I'm charismatic, I'm committed to a noble cause. And Pisces, I end, because it's ending the seasonal cycle. I love, I'm the universe, I'm caring, I'm loving, I believe, I imagine, I dream. So how are we bringing these two things together? And Pisces being more of a universal energy, and Aries being more of an individual, like I am, and rather than the Piscean saying, "I'm the universe. I am unity. I am all of it." And so together they can recognize the many, meaning the individuals, are the one, meaning unity. That we're all united and connected in the end and the beginning, and the beginning and the end. So anyway, so here's some key words for the essence of Aries and the shadow of Aries, and the essence of Pisces and the shadow of Pisces. So Aries, the essence, and these are just a few. This is not covering the whole realm of it, but enthusiastic, charismatic, decisive, committed, determined is some of the essence of Aries. The shadow, uninspired, moody, indecisive, self-involved, wavering. So Pisces, some of the essence, loving, caring, empathic, intuitive, imaginative. Some of the shadow, shut down, overgiving, doesn't care, checked out, illusions. So these are just some of the ways that we have seen them in a more separate kind of way, but we're going to also start now seeing how the two of them work together. So if we think about the Aries Pisces MetaGoddess, the Alpha and Omega, courageously dreaming into and actively creating a new Earth reality. So she is guiding us to balance dreaming and inspired action as we co-create with great mystery, crafting a more loving, caring, kind, considerate, just world. Because if we're just dreaming, we're not creating. If we're not dreaming, we may not be inspired to create or take the action that it's needed to create something. So the two of them together can really work an amazing, if they're working together, can really help us to co-create this new world. So guiding us to courageously commit to empathic, compassionate, because you have to have passion too, that action that nurtures and cares for all life as beloved. And the thing about Aries, my daughter, who's a triple Aries, she was saying, Aries will defend and protect because it loves what it's defending and protecting. And we don't think of Aries as being connected to love, but it is. So I was like, oh, that was a great, brilliant insight. And then also is committed to healthy forms of selfless service to the divine. That's very Pisces, being in selfless service to the divine. And Aries is about taking the action that is in commitment to that, while remembering to fiercely nurture ourselves in the process. So important, because we can often overlook that one. And since she's also guiding us to embrace life in all its dimensions through the power of fire and water, expressing as personal and impersonal, because Aries is more personal and Pisces is more impersonal, seeking a true balance between them both. So, any comments about any of that so far?
I was going to throw in, I think you could see this summit literally as a manifestation of Pisces Aries goddess energy because you and I are both that, right? So it's like, okay, well, this summit is entirely free. We're giving it away in service of what? The divine and our collective good. And yet we put it into real action, like unwavering action. That's our Aries part coming through, right? Very strongly. We get it done. We got it done.
And
But
we
it's
were inspired, so we took
yeah.
inspired action.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
I love that. That's great.
And
Shared
can
it.
I also throw in, I'm wanting to speak to people who are saying, well, I don't have Pisces or Aries energy in my chart. And, what would you say to that? I mean, I would say, well, but it still all applies. Like this applies to every single one of us, even if you feel that way about yourself, right?
Well, we experience all of the archetypal energies.
Yes.
They may not be the main focus for us, but we're living in a time, everybody's going to be feeling this. Everybody. I mean, Martha, you and I have talked about this, Sheridan and I have talked about this. Everybody's feeling this Aries Pisces, and to understand it and how to cultivate and work with it is going to be incredibly helpful. So you don't have to. And the thing is if you have strong Neptune on your chart, even if you don't have any Pisces, you probably have that quality of energy. If you have a lot of fire on your chart, even if you don't have Aries specifically, then you've got some connection to that energy. So that this whole fire and water aspect of it, everybody experiences all of it. We experience all the elements, we experience all the cycles, we experience all the seasons. So, anything you want to add,
And
Sheridan?
Yeah, I'll just say that it's still the overarching this meta goddess aspect of the divine feminine over this year and a half as well. So if that is an energy that speaks to you in any way, which it does for so many of us and is just coming more and more online, that's the balance this Aries Pisces energy is activated for that whole entire time. So it's another way to really just consciously try and tune into that archetypal energy and how do we cultivate and help bring that online more and more for all of us. And Aries and Pisces lives on your chart somewhere, regardless of whether you have planets in those houses or not, you know?
exactly. And I was just thinking that just to also throw in, if you know your chart, you could think about where is that the bridge, the cusp between Pisces and Aries in your chart, and you're gonna whatever part of your chart that happens to be, that is going to be incredibly highlighted over and over and over and over and over again by Venus, by Neptune, by Saturn, by Mercury, through this all of 2025 and then into 2026. Big time, big time. So, and we all have that every single person has that
Well,
in
and if
our.
you think also too about, so Aries might say, well, I don't have that. I'm that individual aspect. I don't really relate to that or whatever. But then Pisces would say, but we're all connected. We're all universally
Mm,
united in all of this. So everything that's happening on the planet collectively is also happening to us personally. Just sometimes we notice it more than others.
yeah, there you
And
go.
not to mention the nodes just shifting, and that's
Yeah,
where the eclipses are going to be,
yep,
which, everyone
Yeah.
gets pretty like tuned
So just
into.
so for those who might not know, the North Node was at the zero Aries point in early January of 2025, and it shifted to the 29 degrees Pisces point at like on January 11th, I think it was, and will be in Pisces for the next 18 and a half months or so. So that, and we're going to talk more about that as we go because this is something big that's happening. So if we think about Aries Pisces, it's igniting enthusiasm and empathy. And it's committed to helping and healing all wounds and understand the courage that is needed to be willing to feel the full range of grief and sorrow and rage and excitement, enthusiasm and joy. Like we can't ignore any one part of that. And so I feel like this combination is, when it's healthy, is not trying to fix, change, or make something be different or someone be different than what they are. Just holding the space for them to be where they are. And sometimes that is all that's needed for the healing to take place. Just hold the space for yourself, hold the space for those around you to be where they are. And what she's doing is holding sacred space, which is Aries. I got this insight on Aries years ago that she was like the original midwife, helping protect the birthing space for women. She didn't help deliver the child, the woman could do that herself. but she made it safe so the woman could be giving birth to the child because she was totally vulnerable in the moment. That is so Aries. So anyway, so that when you feel gotten and fully seen in the most loving ways possible, healing can take place. So Kuan Yin totally exemplifies an Aries Pisces goddess. She, from her Pisces aspect, the name Kuan Yin translates to the one who perceives the sounds of the world. And she's also, so this basically says she has the ability to hear the cries of those in need with compassion, mercy, and healing energy. And her Aries aspect is she's fiercely protective. And for those in need, she's a guardian protector, and she will not put up with nonsense. And she is protective. Her nurturing and protective qualities act as a compassionate warrior, not one that goes to war for the sake of war, to conquer, to you know, be better than everybody else or whatever that might be, but because she's there to help alleviate the suffering of others. So she's someone we can tune into as part of this Aries Pisces MetaGoddess. And what's going to happen is that Aries and Pisces will be the MetaGoddess for the next couple of cycles. And basically, we've had the Aries MetaGoddess on the world stage for about 104 years, and she's been the one that's been in the foreground, and she's kind of moving back, and Pisces is moving forward, but they're working together in this process. So this is a powerful journey to further activate our loving presence, naturally inspiring the power of love in action. The power of love in action. Love that. To help heal and nurture us into a new world that is loving, caring, kind, and just. Um, so some these Aries Pisces Meta Goddess qualities are some other things, like one is prophetic, because interestingly, Aries is highly intuitive. I don't know that a lot of people really realize that, but I witness it all the time, how intuitive Aries is, and they know what they know without knowing how they know it. They just, it's like an instant thing. It's not a feeling, it's just like this knowing that goes beyond the mind and the heart or the gut, kind of thing. So, and then of course Pisces is also highly intuitive. So we're bringing two very highly intuitive signs together, and they have an ability, I think, to sense future events beyond the logical mind. And as I was tuning into this, I was seeing that the Oracle of Delphi is like the combination of Aries and Pisces. Because Aries likes to tell it like it is, sometimes not as compassionately as Pisces might. Pisces will like to tells it in a way that's healing, helpful, and kind. And the Oracle of Delphi sat over a chasm where there were vapors or fumes from a nearby spring that were rising up from this chasm. So like this misty, mystical kind of thing, and then would give the prophecies in kind of in an altered state, or like a mystical kind of place. So we can imagine that there's that also going on with this Aries Pisces MetaGoddess. So, and then another one could be Sekhmet, and we work with Sekhmet a lot in the Leo and the Aries cycle. But one of the things that she's also a mother. She's also a healer. And so we see the fierce aspect of Sekhmet a lot, but she was the mother of Nefertum or Nefertum. I don't know exactly what's the divine child of that she had with Ptah, who was her consort, sacred partner. And Nefertum or Nefertum became a healer. And I love this because, of course, Sheridan is a aromatherapist. He was considered an aromatherapist who preceded the Greek Asclepius. So this is another energy that is really combining that Aries, Pisces, but also Leo, Queen, and a little bit of Libra, because she had a partner and she was a mother. So
I'll just say quickly that it's cool about aromatherapy because it's actually created by fire and water, right? It is a Aries Pisces alchemical reaction that creates essential oils. with the earth element as well. Okay, go ahead. Sorry. I just was like, wait, there's another way. It's like Aries Pisces. Yeah.
Right. I love that. That's so good. Yeah, these insights just keep coming. They just keep coming. Okay. Once you start tuning into something, it's like, right. So on March 1st, so just prior to this, the airing of this summit, um, Venus is turning retrograde, and 2 hours before her, this is happening 2 hours before her exact meeting with the moon. So here she is in the constellation of the fish, even though she's in Aries, the sign of Aries. Most of the constellation of the fish, also known as Pisces, but we don't want to get confused, is in the fish. So it's like Aries goes from like here to there, and then just in the very tip of the head of the fish is where the sign of Pisces actually still exists. It hasn't moved yet. And what's interesting is how Chiron, the moon, Venus are so close, and Venus is just stationed um, retrograde, and also with a star, Alchemy, and we'll talk about that more in a moment. And then here's what's going on with Neptune and Mercury and the North Node, Saturn and the Sun. It's like all this Aries Pisces. Like, whoa, it's going retrograde with so much Aries Pisces energy happening. So anything more anybody wants to say before I move forward?
I don't know if you're going to talk about when Venus goes direct at all, but I was noticing the other day that when Venus goes direct, it's also going to be very close. I think 1 degree off from Saturn, which I find really interesting. We're having this, anyway, that's a different topic, but something about Venus coming together with Saturn feels really important in this time too, because anyway, supporting us to, in a similar way that Aries does with having healthy boundaries and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's just
Right.
one other little component to throw in there.
Well, yeah, and Venus is stationing direct with Pisces in the
Oh,
head of the fish. So here it is, right here, where Venus is going to be stationing direct, aligned with the star Markab in Pegasus. We're going to talk about that more in a moment. And it's retracing 15 degrees. So it goes retrograde at 10 degrees. And this star is at 9:30. They're like a little over a degree apart, but pretty close. It's going
and
and then it's going to
right.
retrograde all the way back to the head of the fish and to the star Markab, which we're going to talk about more in a moment. And so by the time Venus is stationing, then she's reached about 29 degrees from the sun. So definitely will be visible in the morning sky at that point for sure. Um,
And to just throw in back to your picture real quick, that Mercury, which again Gary is going to talk about on his talk, which I think is going to be on March 14th. Mercury's going to be going retrograde at 9 degrees of Aries, so it basically will be traveling across the same
right.
area.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's going to be like it will have moved. Well, so it's retrograde, and this is where it's in its retrograde. So Mercury's at 28 Pisces. Oh no, it's already gone direct, but it's at 28 Pisces. So it started out here and it's moving back to this part of the sky, also somewhat close to Saturn as well. So, okay.
How interesting that they're really like tracing the same, close to almost the exact same path through the sky. So if you didn't think this was like a big deal before now, this is just another exclamation point on it. But I love what you bring in about the whole Saturn component too, Martha, because it's like, right? Like Saturn is where we take like these big ideas and understandings and that heart connection and like bring it into the real world where it can have like an effect in our like daily lives and in the world's lives and all of that. So I agree with you. I think there's something very powerful and remarkable about that.
And so, and just also what's happening is this is all taking place in the constellation of the fish, also known as Pisces, but we call it the fish because it's the sign of Aries. Most of it's in the sign of Aries. Some of it's a little bit in the sign of Pisces, and Pegasus, the winged horse. So Pegasus is from Greek mythology. What's interesting is how he was birthed out of the slain head of Medusa, the Gorgon Medusa. And it was also from that Greek myth was defeated the monstrous chimera, which was a mix of lion, goat, and snake capable of breathing fire. So there's a fire aspect. But the other thing is that Pegasus was able to create a spring of poetic inspiration as Hippocrene. It was called Hippocrene. And it inspired those who drank from it when, and the way he created it was he struck his hoof on a rock and then this spring came forth. There is winged horses in Hindu mythology, Chinese mythology, and Norse mythology. It is, and there's others too, but those are definitely the ones that I was able to find more information about. And so what we want to do is really honor Pegasus, who is also a fire and water creature in a sense, like and also air because it could fly through the air. Anyway, so here's the where Venus is stationing retrograde and Mercury, and then this is where Venus is coming back to these two big stars in the great square of Pegasus. And so Al-Janeb is a like Pegasus and the star Al-Janeb are Aries-like because they vibrate with the gift of sharp, decisive mind and enthusiasm, very Aries. And the shadow side can be combative, obstinate, headstrong, also can be Aries. That's some of the shadow of Aries. And very Pisces-like because Pegasus was known for activating the springs that created the inspiration. And so also Pegasus with Venus and going back and forth between here, it's adding this energy of adventure and generosity and kindness and philanthropy and majesty to the beginning of this Venus retrograde. And then she comes back to Markab, and that's considered the saddle of Pegasus. So literally Arabic for the saddle of the horse, and is said to illuminate our spiritual and mental nature, suggesting an extraordinary ability to focus conscious awareness beyond our everyday experience into multi-dimensional possibilities. Love this so much. So here we have Venus expanding multidimensional possibilities and crossing the equinox portal 3 times. So 0 Aries point, the first time is February 4th, so that will have already happened by the time this is airing. The second time is March 27th, that'll happen during our summit that's happening. And then April 30th is the last time it crosses. And so, and this is all happening between the fish and Pegasus or the winged horse. And so here's the portal. If people want to tune in and kind of see where this is taking them, because I think it's pretty magical and amazing.
Well, and Kaylin, when you and I recorded the video to, really to basically invite people into this summit, we talked about this time now in March of 2025 as being a portal time, right? So I think this is absolutely perfect that you're showing this image. We can each experience this portal time differently, but I'm feeling, just looking at this image, so drawn to it. It feels really, really powerful. And so I don't know if you want to just pause for even 10 seconds to kind of feel that in our bodies, that this is the first day of the summit. We've already had our opening ceremony, and we have this choice now to be stepping into this magical portal of this Aries, Pisces, Pegasus, Venus, Mercury, Neptune, Saturn, all of the above and more energetic, where again, the purpose of this summit, but also the opportunity of this moment, is that we can jump into that portal, which is basically a choice to be these superconductors of love, which is really this Pisces meeting Aries energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love how you said that. Yeah, because Aries wants a mission. So to be a
Mm,
superconductor of love could be a great mission for Aries that it can take action on. And Pisces is like, yeah, I'm already that.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly. So, so this Neptune and Saturn piece, just to add another piece of when they're coming together, at zero Aries, and I think I mentioned already that it's 3,000 years, so 1,500 years in the past and 1,500 years in the future. This is the only time on February 20th, 2026, that Saturn will conjunct Neptune at the zero Aries point. And they do come together about every 35 to 37 years. And sometimes they come together in Aries, and you can see all the way back to 32, 555, 1380, 1703. They were in Aries, but not anywhere near the zero Aries point. This is the only time. So this is telling us how important this portal is. And if we think of Neptune as the formless or the dream energy or the field of all possibilities where all of creation arises from, and we think of Saturn as the form, where how we put it into form. So here's the formless coming into form, becoming the earth. And how are we creating a new earth with this understanding? And so the last Saturn Neptune conjunction was in 1989, and it was in Capricorn, and that was about 36 and a half years ago. And the next one is in Gemini in 2061, about 35 and a half years from now. So that just shows you how rare it is. Now, the other thing that's interesting is Saturn and Neptune stay within 10 degrees and are often super close. They don't make an exact conjunction, they come so close. February 7th of 2025 to February 28th of 2027. A long time that they are hanging out within 10 degrees of each other. Now we can see Saturn when it's not with the sun, but we can't see Neptune, but we can just know that it's there. It's like hanging out there. And so how are we dreaming into? How is the formless coming into form? How is that part of what we're imagining at this time? So, the
Sorry,
Venus,
just
go ahead.
throw this in. There's something so important to me about this Venus-Saturn conjunction too, and so I'm just trying to feel why do I feel that so strongly? But just one idea coming to me is because yes, that Saturn-Neptune conjunction happening February 20th, 2026, so in 11 months from now, is such a big deal. It's like I'm just wondering if this Venus retrograde and this Venus dance that's going on right now in March of 2025, um, when Venus goes direct, it is meeting with Saturn, right? So it's almost like, and then of course in its retrograde dance, it's also uh conjunct Neptune a total of what, 3 times. So it's like I wonder if there's a way that Venus bridging Aries with Pisces and kind of touching in with Saturn and touching in with Neptune is kind of infusing them with its own Venusian something something, right? As
Yes,
yeah,
yes, and that just adds to the sense that we have about it being Aries Pisces.
yes. And
It's the
Mercury
signs are everywhere. They're just everywhere.
yeah. And then Mercury, of course, is doing also that retrograde from Aries into Pisces and touching in with Neptune and Saturn, et cetera, right? So again, we get to that later with Gary, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I just want to add into that too, that if we're talking about like Venus being the divine feminine, right? How much is it that we're needing that energy to birth the formless into form, right? That ultimate, like Neptune for me is really like the place that we go into our heart, then to connect to the universal heart, right? And so then when Saturn's there, there's like a place of like, okay, well, then how do we take that, like I said before, and bring it into like the real world, 3D world that we like go about our business day to day? But we have this divine feminine aspect, like igniting that, which is right. We're seeking, we were talking about this before we started recording about balance, right? We need that pendulum to start coming back into more balance between the masculine and the feminine. And so I feel that a lot when you're
And of
asking.
course, Aries
question.
is a masculine sign and Pisces is the feminine sign. So there's a balance between the two of them just there.
Yes.
Masculine thing. Yeah, I love.
And I'll throw in also later, one of the talks coming up later this in the summit is with Heather Ensworth, and she also talks about her perspective of the Venus cycle, which is a little bit different from yours, but she brings in some beautiful, powerful insights about the Venus cycle that are happening right now and the Mars cycle that has been going on, in early 2025. um and the fact that we are being held in this time right now, not only to kind of rebirth our relationship to Venus and the divine feminine, but also with the divine masculine, and how we're being held with both of them at the same time, which is amazing. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and
but
like,
yeah,
sorry, and like how perfect, right? I mean, depending upon how you start the Mars cycle, but the Mars cycle, we're saying, started in Cancer at the opposition to the sun because it's the most
yeah,
visible kind of so it's like, Mars, fire, masculine, Cancer, mother, nurturer, right? Water. So it's just, I mean, like, yes, more exclamation points on everything that Heather's sharing. I'm on board with her.
totally,
So
exactly.
good. So good. Yes. Awesome. Okay. So on March 29th of 2025, Venus officially rises as morning star when she's 10 degrees from the sun. And again, we're looking at what the ancient cultures did. They started the story of Inanna when she was visible. She could be seen, and the whole story begins when she pops up into the morning sky. Um, so this is the first time in 155 years that Venus will have risen in the morning sky in Pisces. But really? Because there's actually another piece I'm going to share in a moment about the fact that that might not be exactly the case. But here's the thing that is like blowing my mind. So the March 22nd is the Venus Sun conjunction with Mercury very close. Of course, retrograde. Both Venus and Mercury are retrograde, so very close. And then, and that's happening in 2025. And then in 2033, there's a Venus Sun conjunction at 0 Aries. And it's not until 2041 that they have a conjunction in Pisces. So those who look at the conjunction as the beginning of the cycle would not be until 2041. And you can look at it any way you choose. Whatever you look at and whatever you focus your attention on will work for you. Just saying. So if that's what lights you up and that's how you want to look at it, then it won't actually be Pisces until 2041. But Venus started stationing direct in Pisces in 2009, and she's stationing retrograde in Aries until 2057, and that'll be the last time it'll be at 1 degree Aries, 32 in 2057. So is there an Aries flavor that's still connected to that for that long? So how long does the transition take? And if we looked at 2025, because we'll see in a moment that Venus is going to possibly rise for some people on the planet in Aries, visible, and then for others that won't be until Pisces. So do we look at 2025 to 2041? That's 16 years. Do we look at 2009 to 2041? Because it started stationing direct in Pisces in 2009. That's 32 years. By the way, every 8 years is a Venus return. So 16 and 32 are definitely part of the Venus cycle, as is 64. If we looked at 2009 from the first time it stationed direct in Pisces to the last station of retrograde in Aries to 2057, that's 64 years. So how long is this transition from Pisces to Aries, Aries to Pisces? I mean, I don't necessarily feel like I have answers to that, or that Sheridan and I have answers to that, but this is something we're exploring more deeply as we continue to work with this Venus cycle and beyond.
And I
Um,
think this is such an important point that you bring up with that, Kaylin, right? Because I think there can be this like overemphasis or obsession on like, this is what's happening right now, or this is what's happening for this 18 months, or this kind of thing. But we're talking about like cycles that really like ebb and flow and change over long periods of time. So like, stay in it for the long haul rather than like, wow, everything should be changed and evolve to what we think it should be in this like specific short amount of time, right? Coming back to that idea of like tuning ourselves back into the cycles of life and the length and breadth of those cycles. Takes the
Brilliant.
pressure off.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And how much of we have so many times when things are shifting from one to the other, and not just the Venus cycle, but lots of different things. And so how are we being with that in a more conscious way? And not, it's like not either or, it's both and more. So here we go. So here on March 23rd, so we saw that Venus is conjunct the Sun on March 22nd at 2.5 Aries. And here, when Venus is at 2, still almost not quite a half, Aries, about a degree from the Sun, on March 23rd, it's clearing the horizon around 6:18 a.m. Now, this was sunrise chart, the sun getting ready to rise around 6:25 a.m., and the Venus and Sun are only 1 degree apart now. So supposedly, no planet is visible when it's with either exactly conjunct the Sun or within a degree of the Sun. But because of the declination of Venus, she's on the horizon at 6:18 a.m. and then at 6:40 a.m. is about, or 6:45, the sun is about to rise about 22 minutes later. So that means that in some places, low horizon line, and depending on, your angles and how it all comes up over the horizon and that sort of thing, some people will see Venus on March 23rd in Aries. So Aries, Pisces, Aries MetaGoddess, right? And then the official rise on March 29th, here's Venus above the horizon around 5:50 a.m. She came up a little earlier. And then the sun is rising about 30 minutes later. So, and you can see that the sun is still, well, actually, I don't have the sun here. The sun's coming up over here, looks like. Never mind. But Venus is close. It's fairly close to the alignment with the vernal equinox, or the 0 Aries point, being at, and Mercury is right there with the equinox point, and Venus is at 28 Pisces, almost 29, and right here with Neptune. So Neptune adding a whole Piscean element. Saturn's not far away. The North Node is in the mix of all of this. Like, what a way to start a Venus cycle, with Saturn, the North Node, Saturn, the form, the North Node having to do with destiny. What is the destiny of the divine feminine as she's rising up into this new expression? And with Neptune right there also. Mercury also right there.
And 1 hour before this is the exact solar eclipse.
Right. We're going to do that next.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah. So, so in the energy of all of this, is that the sun and moon are at 9 degrees Aries, meaning they're aligned with the star Algenib, which is at 9:30 Aries. So so in the constellation of the fish, even though it's the sign of Aries, and this is a partial solar eclipse that's going to close the eclipse window, and some maybe partially visible for people in Europe and Northern Asia and Northwest Africa, a little bit of North America and the Atlantic and the Arctic. So, and eclipses and eclipse windows are also portals. So it's like the getting ready to close that portal as Venus is rising. So in Aries, as Venus is rising in Pisces, to be visible to people across the planet. Now, again, if you have really high mountains in the east, you might not see Venus on March 29th, but most people will.
That's me. Yeah.
Sorry, can I fill in something really fast? Because it's something we talk about with Gary too. So okay, March 29th is a humongous day. It's like, so okay. So first thing in the early in the, well, depending on where you are in the world. But anyway, we have the exact solar eclipse. Then Venus rises, then the sun rises. Also that day, Mercury is going already retrograde and re-enters Pisces, goes from Aries back into Pisces and conjuncts Neptune at 29:59 Pisces. And then Mercury, continues retrograde in Pisces. But then that night, the next day, Neptune then enters Aries. Right? It's like, what?
So wait, is there
So
an
many
Aries
things.
Pisces thing going on? And a Pisces Aries thing's going on? Seems like there is. Like, oh yeah, baby.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So here's the chart for when Venus reaches exactly 10 degrees. So from the sun, 8:52 Aries and Venus at 28:52 Pisces, happening just after midnight. In I guess if you're in Pacific time, it would be just before, it would be the night before, just before midnight. But anyway, so that's the official 10 degrees. So that means by the morning, Venus is 10 degrees from the sun rising up, and that's the official, one of the official ways to look at it. But sometimes Venus is seen way before that, as we just saw. Like, looks like she might be visible for some the day after her conjunction with the sun. Sometimes it could be like 3 or 4 days. Or sometimes it maybe takes a little longer. So you just have to find a way to kind of create a sense of what's the possibility of being able to see Venus in the morning sky. And that's what the ancient people were looking for. When they saw Venus pop up, they knew that it was time to start their ceremonies. Now, here's something also interesting about this particular cycle. It was the cycle of Venus closest to the spring equinox that the Sumerians and Babylonians did their high ceremony as a culture all together. And in fact, that is what inspired Venus alchemy in the first place, except we do them all. We don't just do the one at the spring equinox. But this one is really close to the spring equinox. And so this would be the one that they would have, and it actually most closely models the story of Inanna. And something else to know about this cycle is that at Newgrange in Ireland, the winter solstice is when the sun rises and lights up the passage. At the winter solstice in the Aries Pisces cycle, Venus rises about 20 minutes before the sun. You don't necessarily see her, but she lights up the passage. The passage goes dark, and the sun comes up later and relights the passage. And they built that specifically for the 8-year Venus cycle. How cool is that? I can't remember which book it was. Christopher Knight and Robert Lomas wrote some really great books on it. One of the books they wrote talks about how their research found that that's what they were doing at Newgrange. So here's the beginning of the cycle, and just something to know that there is number magic. 5 Venus cycles every 8 years. 5 times 8 is 40. Venus is usually retrograde about 40 days. Every 251 years, Venus will come back to the exact same starting place, but it's on a different point of the pentagram. And so so Venus rose for the last time in Aries in 2017, and it's going to not start rising in Aries until April of 2172. And then and that is 251 years from the last time it rose, first time in Aries, which was in 1921. Oh, I'm getting confused about my things. But anyway, so it matches this 251-year pattern. And so on March 29th, 1774, Venus was 10 degrees from the sun at about almost the exact same degree, just a few minutes off, 251 years ago. Like, oh, wow. And it rose in Pisces a total of 13 times from 1774 to 1878, or 104 years. So there's usually 104 years for each pentagram before it shifts into a new cycle. And the last time Venus rose as morning star was March 2nd, 1870, which is about 155 years ago. And there are 13 rises of Venus in Pisces, taking us to 2129. It's when it will start rising in Aquarius. So cool. So this is 1774. Here's Venus on the horizon at 6:17 a.m. This is according to Starry Night, my Starry Night program. And then the next on March 24th. And then I the next it was conjunct the sun on March 23rd. I put in March 24th, so you could see, but it was conjunct the sun on March 23rd, very close. March 22nd this time, March 23rd then, so it's just probably a few hours different. And then it was high in the sky, or fairly high in the sky, as the sun was starting to come up in 1774. So we are repeating that, but the thing they didn't have in 1774, they didn't have Neptune. They had the South Node in Aries and Pisces. Mars was there, but and Chiron happened to be in Aries also, interestingly. But anyway, just so you get a sense of, like, these are patterns that are extended out over a long period of time. So, so these are just showing what was happening in 1878 when Venus rose in Aquarius. And then in 2129, when it's going to rise in Aquarius again. So that pattern, how it's playing out. Now, the North Node being with Venus in this cycle is very illuminating. It's a special, rare event. So what happened in 1774, Venus was, and it should say South Node, I forgot to change that. South Node was in Pisces. And then, and now in 2025, the North Node is in Pisces, and it's meeting with Venus 4 times during this cycle. And of course, 3 of them in 2025, but 1 is in the Leo cycle, which won't end until March, and they're meeting together in February. And then the next couple of times will be after the Venus cycle has started. And then there'll be a third time in 2026 when they come together in Pisces. And this doesn't happen all that often. And in fact, if we look at, and it's every 50. Okay, actually, I needed to put this one first, so I'll come back to it. But here are Venus conjunct the North Node in Pisces from 1914 to 2063, and you can see there's only once that they are 4 times in Pisces together, like, you know, within the same, well, 3 times in the same cycle, once just before the new cycle begins. The last time was in 1970, and that is 56 years ago, from 2026 to 1970, or 1970 to 2026, 56 years. Venus and the North Node come back together every 56 years. And when it was together with Venus last time in 1970, it only conjuncted the North Node once. Whereas now so if we think about the North Node as destiny, and Venus is meeting with the North Node 4 times, as we get ready to start the new cycle, as we're in the cycle, the 3 times it's meeting with in the cycle, this is amazing that it's syncing with the North Node, with the sign of destiny for the divine feminine. So how are we coming into a greater expression of our own destiny? For the feminine principle, not just for women per se, but for the feminine principle in all life. I don't know what the answer to that is, but okay, so if we go back to, let's see. So what happens is it'll be 56 years before this happens again, but it's going to do the same pattern. So it's interesting because it only did it once in 1970. It's doing it 2025 to 2026, 4 times, but 3 times in the same cycle. And it's the same patterns repeating in 2081 and 2082. So, wow. This to me just feels like another confirmation about how we're looking at this cycle, and that it is somehow aligned, and that we were meant to figure this out. It's like part of our destiny to know this, to work with this. So
another thing that's interesting to me about those first three Venus North Node conjunctions in 2025 is that the nodes will be squaring the galactic center.
Yeah.
Yeah, which to me just adds in, like this extra, like you're saying, we're destined to sort of figure this out. And the North Node is right there in Pisces, which is obviously connected to the divine, and then the nodes and Venus are squaring the galactic center, which is the black hole at the center of our galaxy, which to me also connects us right in with source or the divine, or I mean, I don't know what it feels like for you, but like extra direct connection, right?
Right. Oh
Mm.
yeah, definitely. Oh my gosh, so good. So yeah, so here's this nodal thing, and the last time I saw this happen was in 2020 when it was in Gemini. And so it's a rare, I mean, if we look at it's not going to go this way. If we look at how often it does it 3 times, even in just, what, and the different meta goddesses, the different energies of the goddess that were present, only once in Aries since 1914, and the Aries cycle started in 1921, and then 1970, and then once in the Leo cycle, and then it's going to be 3 times in the Aries Pisces cycle. Like, wow, so cool. All right. So we're kind of here wrapping up towards the end, but just to kind of give you a sense of how much Pisces Aries is going on in March of 2025. And I don't want to go through all of these because it's a lot. But the conjunctions with the North Node, the Sun with the North Node, Mercury with the North Node, and Neptune. I mean, so many pieces that are happening that are also activating our, Saturn with the North Node, and just so much going on. So anyway, you can see I put the eclipse in green because when the eclipse window starts, it's going to be a Virgo moon eclipse. But then the partial eclipse a couple weeks later is going to be in Aries. So, but it felt like it was important to just point out the eclipse window. And then the last thing to talk about is all the dates of 2025, unless sometimes it's 2026, but the 3 times Venus passes the zero Aries point is February 1st, March 27th, April 30th. We've talked about that. Mercury, March 3rd, March 29th, and April 15th, the zero Aries point. So it's either moving from Pisces into Aries, or it's moving from Aries back into Pisces, or then from Pisces back into Aries, those 3 times. Neptune, March 30th, September 1st, and January 22nd of 2026. And Saturn, May 24th, September 1st, and February 13th, 2026. So this point has never been lit up like this that I am aware of. And maybe it hasn't been in many lifetimes, that this zero Aries point, which is 20, like if we think about Martha were mentioning the 2959 conjunction of Mercury and Neptune, 2959 Pisces, which is almost the zero Aries point. It's like right there, right there. So many amazing things that are happening with this cycle that I just can't wait to dive into it further. This is just the beginning. This is just like the very tip of the iceberg. And then if what we're going to do for our free gift is we're going to make sure that if you want to know if you're in this, having a Venus return in this cycle, these are the dates. If you were born between any of these dates, these are the dates that will give you the sense of that. And if you're born within a week or two of the beginning date or the end date, you might still be in the cycle. It's a little tricky because Venus, when it's retrograde, doesn't go retrograde, in the same way all the time. So it's always constantly shifting and moving. So that retrograde or direct or stationing direct time can be kind of throw off the dates a little bit. So if you're within a couple weeks of those dates, then you might consider that you're also in this cycle. And also, if you have planets, angles, or nodes, like if your North Node is in Pisces or in Aries, or if your Aries or Pisces rising, but you don't have Venus in Aries or Pisces, or you're not in your Venus return, then the cycle will be highly personal for you, because it's going to be activating those energies in a personal way. And even if you don't, as Martha said earlier, even if you don't have any of that, this might be something that is you want to explore further and be connected to. So, yeah. Anything anybody wants
Well,
to say?
yes. So a couple things. I mean, so I think what you're alluding to, but not directly saying, I'll say it for you. is, and I should have said this actually at the beginning. So part of the reason that Sheridan and Kaylin are speaking about the Venus cycle, for anybody who doesn't know this, Kaylin and Sheridan are jointly run Venus Alchemy, right? And so Venus Alchemy is a joint venture by the two of you, that is all about exploring the Venus cycle. And so you guys are both experts in this. That you have so much that you offer, including you're about to be offering your new Venus Alchemy series, which I have been part of this whole past cycle, and I highly recommend. So that's part of what's coming up for you after the summit, starting in April, right? For anybody who's interested in going more deeply.
Towards the end of
Uh,
April will be the first life class. Ceremonial journey with the Aries Pisces MetaGoddess, essentially. So, and you don't need to know. I mean, we've done a lot of astrology here today, and we do astrology in the journey, and it's a great way to start learning if you don't know. And for people who do know, they love it and geek out on it. But you don't need to have it. It's like you can get so much out of this journey, even if you don't have um, an astrological background or a strong astrological background.
and I
So,
would say even just the presence of Kaylin and Sheridan is kind of the real point for me in terms of this Venus alchemy journey. It's like the details are important, but really it's you guys.
Aw,
so
that's so nice.
we're going to offer the free gift so you can figure out if you're going to be in a Venus return based on the dates. And we'll probably have a couple of other things as well that maybe from this that would help people to tune in. And then Sheridan, you want to share about how they can find us?
Yeah, so you can just go to venusalchemy.com and you can click on classes and you can learn about this Aries Pisces ceremonial journey that we're offering starting in April, or you can just go to venusalchemy.com/Aries-Pisces as well. But yeah, and then you can go and read all about it and see if it's something that feels like a good match for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I would love to, if you have something else you want to say, go for it. But what I would love to do before we close is also just, um, for all of us, regardless of whether we go down the Venus alchemy journey or not, um, for the purpose of the summit and today, this day that we're here on this summit, something that I think we can take away. Maybe you guys could add in some words here with this, but it's like each day of this summit is yet another. It's like a pebble or like a stepping stone in this portal opportunity that we have as a collective, right? And individually. And so it's like the way I feel it is that each of these days of the summit is like we put a magical stone down, and um and you two are bringing this magical stone for us collectively today to kind of help us on our journey in this portal time. Um, and so I would say, among other things, of course, that the magic of this stone today is the goddess, the divine feminine, everything you just offered, right? But is there anything you want to say about to send everybody out into this first day of the summit, from this magic that you're offering to us? What would yeah,
I
how
would
would you?
just say, like, keep just feeling into and leaning into that whole Aries Pisces piece, right? Just keep letting that, like, yes, listen to what we've shared or what other people are going to share, but what matters is what comes to you. So just keep feeling into, tuning more into to yourself and letting those archetypal energies help you uncover and emerge more of who you really are and what is that giving to you and bringing to you and offering to you during this time.
As you
And
said.
following up on the theme of the summit, it's really about the love. And I think Aries and Pisces bring the love, and they have their each unique ways of doing that, but they can blend together in such a beautiful way. And so the thing is that we can change the world if we're willing to show up and vibrate as superconductors of love, as those who are just, it's like we don't have to go, like Aries might say, we need to go march, we need to do this, we need to do, it's like, and those things are great. Not saying not to do those things, but we can also change everything through our consciousness and our awareness and how we're vibrating. And if we're vibrating with the power of love and taking action from that, that changes everything. And that also allows us to be co-creators of this new reality in ways that we are only beginning to suspect.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say for me also what feels important is, of course, all components of ourselves are important. The feminine is important, the masculine is important, the non, the Mercury's Hermes sort of blending of the two is important. All of it's important. Um, but what I'm feeling in my own being as we're ending this particular talk is the opportunity to really take a moment and feel the goddess that is me, right? And the role that this Piscean Aries goddess of me has in this time, that we need the goddess, literally. We seriously do, big time, and we each are that, no matter what gender we identify as. We all have the goddess in us. And so something I'm feeling is how present she is as we're kind of wrapping up this talk, and we can bring her fully, completely into the space and really invite the goddess into this collective portal sacred space that we're in now.
And she's here to guide us through it and to get the most out of it. So, yay.
Yay. Yeah. Yeah, and it's going to be different for each of us, who that goddess is or the gifts she brings. And something that would be beautiful is for everybody listening, if you feel like it today, to share here on this video or in the free sharing space. What do you feel in your own being with these energies, with the Pisces, with the Aries, but also with this goddess that is you? What is the goddess that is you offering into our sacred space, or anything else you want to share?
So
For,
for women that might be their well, for men and women, their inner goddess, whatever that aspect is, your inner
yeah,
goddess, um, that is always there for you, is always with you, but we don't always remember to pay attention.
yeah, exactly. I
Beautiful.
feel her super strongly. Feels awesome. Yay.
Yay. Oh, thank you so much, Martha. This has been really fun.
Thank you both. You're both amazing, amazing, amazing. I highly recommend Sheridan. I highly, of course, recommend Kaylin. And, yeah, go check out the YouTube channels and the websites and the Venus Alchemy YouTube channel. And you each have your own YouTube channels, plus there's a Venus Alchemy YouTube channel, plus there's your own websites, plus there's a Venus Alchemy website, um, and more, right, with both of you. So definitely everybody go connect and get the free gift. And yes,
Yay.
and yay. And we'll be back tomorrow with more to come.
And it'll be also exciting. So hopefully everybody will have feel inspired to keep tuning in.
Yeah, exactly. See you all soon.
Bye.